welcome everybody to some East action between Anthony Frederikson and Paul Reynolds. Anthony's at the top of the screen, Paul's at the bottom. We're starting with Standard here. A Renegade map from Anthony, so this could be the Marionette Master combo. This just finds you a basic land next turn. Looks like Paul's on the green-red dinosaurs aggro build. Paul is friends with Evan Bello, who's also in the division. I haven't seen what Evan's been playing this season, but I think in Modern we'll see one of Paul's pet decks later on. Paul is Corrida. Okay, Ether Chaser. So this looks like a home brew from Anthony, straight up blue-red. There is a blue-red Artificers deck that's been doing the rounds. I haven't had a good look at it yet, so I'm not sure of the details of that deck. But Paul's got plenty of ramp going early. He's going to be able to drop a threat next turn. He'll have the choice out of either the Thunderherd Migration to ramp even further to get the 5th land, or he can play the Ripjaw Raptor, which will enable him to get card draw from damage spells. The difference here is going to be who has the bigger threats. Obviously Paul's plays very big threats. I believe the Artificer deck is more into the evasion, so it's going to be trying to get around them. As we can see here, Paul's going to play further ramp so he can play Regisaur Alpha, which will put down 2 threats next turn. You have 2. So pass of the turn. He does have an Abrade if he wants to remove one of the threats. Inventor's Goggles. Yeah, so this is the Artificer's deck. So it gives him +1/+2. And I believe he can attach for free if an Artificer enters the battlefield. And this enables him, the red creature that swung, enables him to pay energy to get a Thopter. And so Paul's not going to muck around, he's going to remove that straight away. So he's going to be able to play Regisaur Alpha next turn. A 3/3 that it comes with it will have haste. 2 Raptors now, so then the turn after, well, I don't really like that play. If he was intending to play the Ripjaw Raptor before the Alpha, he could have played that out last turn, and he could have played the ramp spell this turn so that he would then be using his mana more efficiently. So he just basically wasted a turn there. Although he did use the Abrade. There's favourable wins, so it's going to pump all of his flyers, +1/+1, pass of the turn, but it's starting to look here like Paul just has the bigger threats. And they're going to probably run over the top of Anthony's creatures because Anthony needs to play a kind of a tempo game, and we haven't seen any evidence on his side that he has any sort of disruption, so something like an Essence Scatter that would be very handy in this matchup. So more energy Inventor's Goggles is going to equip, make that a 2/3 flying token, but the 2/3 coming across is going to be grossly outclassed by the 2/4/5s plus the 3/3 coming across. So I think this is going to get pretty ugly pretty quickly. Down comes the Regisaur Alpha. Drover of the Mighty also acting as a ramp spell here. The 3/3 will have haste because of the Regisaur Alpha. So there's going to be 11 damage coming across here. 3 cards in hand for Anthony, he's down to 16. He'll harness Lightning the Alpha. Drover of the Mighty is also getting in there. And he goes down to 5, so I think he's just dead on board. Yeah, on to game 2. Sorry, my font is out of place here. I've incorrectly put the banner on the side, so I have to fix that up later. Make the font the correct size. Unfortunately, it's part of the editing, so I can't. It's too late to fix it now. You can see from the banner on the right, this is lower in the division showdown. It's 7th versus 8th. 12 points separates the two, so Paul can actually catch up if he can get a clean sweep here. You can see Anthony there just wasting no time, Harness Lightning the ramp spell, doesn't want that to resolve. As out comes the Inventor's Goggles. He needs to find an Artificer to equip that to. I quite like this deck that he's playing. I need to look into it a little bit more, but from what we see early here, it just doesn't seem to have the teeth to go with such a big threat. As Anthony continues as Paul continues the ramp. The Thrashing Brontodon will take down that Inventor's Goggles if he wants to. I don't know if he particularly wants to. It's only 1-2 at this stage, as opposed to the 3-4. As here's a massive threat on the other side, Chandra. But as we can see, there's a Regisaur Alpha hanging out for Paul, so Chandra's actually going to take 3 damage next turn. There's the classic play that I always hate, plussing Chandra when you're tapped out, rather than just plussing for mana. And he'll run out the Alpha. So 3-3 is going to chip into Chandra, and Chandra's probably dead next turn. And in those colours, is it colours for Anthony? I don't think he has anything that can really stabilise this board. Hour of Devastation comes down at, I think it's actually 5 mana, but we'll see if he's brought that in or not, or if he's even got it in his deck. So he pluses Chandra to get the mana so he can play Maverick Thopterist. So this is going to bring some Thopters along with it. So it'll equip, get in 2/2/2s thanks to the favourable winds. So he does have some defense here if he's an Odopac Huntmaster. That's going to give creatures haste as well. If Paul wants to force some damage here, he'd have to trade off creatures. You can see the Brontodon there, it's cast for 1 less, so he can actually remove an artifact here if he wants to. Artifact or enchantment. He can take down that favourable winds. I'll see if he wants to swing. Yeah, everybody at Chandra. So in response, he can sack the Brontodon, take down favourable winds to make those flyers weaker. You can see the triple block here, so Anthony's got quite invested in keeping Chandra on the board. Does he want to take down favourable winds? I don't know if he actually needs to here, because he's just going to take down the other creatures anyway. I think I would have just exchanged damage in that combat sequence. But I'm 2 cards in hand for Anthony. I don't know what he's going to draw to get himself out of this a bit of a mess here, because the Paul's deck is just going to be drawn into bigger and bigger threats. Gelta Primal, whatever it's called, is going to be near the top of that.
Let's go and have a shower. Have a shower and I'll give you 10 minutes, okay?
So what's he doing with Harness Lightning will take down the Regisaur Alpha, I guess. This is going to cut off the... Oh no, he doesn't. He goes to the other dinosaur. Okay, because he doesn't want to spend the energy, I'm guessing. But the problem is the Regisaur Alpha is enabling haste on the dinosaurs. Odopac Huntmaster actually is going to be able to tap to give the Ripjaw haste as well here. So I think the problem for this line from Anthony is that wherever he tops and swings, he chips in with the 2. Paul's going to be playing powers twice that, if not more. You can see he's just restricted on green mana here. Metallic Rebuke, well, he can pay the 3 here, but it just means he can't do anything else for the turn. But it also means that Chandra is dead. You can see the 9 damage coming through. Anthony tapped out with only 1 card in hand. So this is not looking good. And he will pass the turn with nine power on the board. So, unfortunately, we can't see what Anthony's drawing for the turn. One of them is an Ether Hub. That lonely Thopter hanging out there. Okay, so River's Rebuke is going to return the 3 dinosaurs to their owner's hand. It's a tempo play, but a temporary one. And what makes it worse is returning the Regisaur Alpha is actually going to give Paul another 3/3 dinosaur here. So down comes the Alpha with the 3/3 to follow that has haste. And you can see that tempo, the River's Rebuke, didn't do too much because the threats is back on the board almost immediately. And Anthony playing off the top of his deck now.
Yep.
Can only draw a land, so this is looking really ugly now. Another green source from Paul I think would put this one away. Drover of the Mighty. That's going to reduce the costs, but he still needs a double green for the Ripjaw. You can see the Ripjaw, he plays it out for 2. In come the Knuckleheads for 11 damage. So he's going to have to chump block, and I don't know what he can find off the top of his deck here. He's thinking, but nothing. So we're going to Modern, and this is game 1 of Modern. Paul's pet deck in Modern is taking turns. You can see down here he's on it again. Anthony, I'm not sure what he's on these days. Anthony's actually going to be featured in the podcast this coming Monday as well. So he does do a bit of brewing. Doesn't want a miracle that with no mana. And straight away he's going for the Geiger Joust just to as a tempo play to buy a turn. Tap down that Steam Vents. Sleight of hand suggests he's probably on Storm. So against a Storm player, we'll see if he holds up Remand. You don't really want to give the Storm player extra cards. Yet I think Shivan Reef confirms that he's on the fetchless Storm. Although I don't recall, I think he fetched that Steam Vents, I might be wrong. So down comes Howling Mine. I'm not sure, okay, he's held up Path to Exile this time so that he can get rid of any of the Goblin Electromancer or the Baral Chief of Compliance if Anthony has one to play. We'll see if he does on the next turn. Plays a Gift Zone given end of turn, so he can potentially go off next turn. So which 2 cards does Paul choose to put in the graveyard here? I'm not sure why Anthony finds those for. It's not what they normally find with the Storm deck. Choose a slide at Metamorphose and Opt. He's obviously got one of the Mana Accelerators in his hand. That suggests to me that he must have the pieces he needs if he's not searching for it with gifts. Normally it's a Grape Shot and I forget the name that allows you to play cards out of your graveyard. He definitely needs at least one. So here's Baral, he's tapped out. I'm not sure why he plays Baral at last. He probably should have played it first. So a bit of a sequencing issue there for Anthony. He's got the mana he needs, 6 cards in hand. And perfect time for exhaustion here from Paul. So Anthony can't untap next turn. So that's basically buying a turn for Paul. He'll pass the turn. Anthony doesn't untap. Howling Mine will make him draw a card, so he's potentially discarding here. No, he's managed to find a land. Pass the turn. A Remand and an extra card, so he's up to 2 for 5. His 7 mana is what he needs to play his first Time Walk. So he's got 2 Remands here, he should be okay for this turn, although 6 mana is more than enough for the Storm player to go off. Only plays Opt, so we've seen the one Baral so far, but we haven't seen anything else. That Gifts Ungiven was a bit of a mystery. His Metamorphose, you can see this just in the bottom right hand corner next to the cancel stop button is a storm count, so we're up to 2 at the moment. Okay, he's going to remand that. These are not as effective when you don't have, I mean, the Metamorphose is not as effective when you have to pay 2 for it rather than 1. As here's a Pyretic Ritual, we'll give him 3. This time he plays the Metamorphose, storm count up to 5. Metamorphose again. He's up to 6. I think he's attempting to go off this turn. Access to 4 mana. 8 cards in hand. Pyretic Ritual, but the painful thing here is paying 2 for each of these. If he had the Baral or the Goblin Electromancer out, then I think this would be game over at this stage. Gonna Grape Shot now for 8. Yeah, you can't remand that. That would be suicide. Unless Anthony has his own remand, he can remand it back himself and then play it again. Would almost be lethal, but he doesn't have it. And is he just passing the turn with 6 cards? And yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I think Paul might be able to... 2, 4, 6. So we'll see if he Geiger Draws. Yeah, Geiger Draws in the upkeep here. So he's going to tap down all of Anthony's threats. Anthony can go off in the upkeep because his spells are at instant speed, but he passed with 6 cards in hand and mana available, so that would suggest he doesn't have the parts he needs to keep going. And you can see with 2 Temporal Masteries and the 7th land, so Paul is going to be able to take control of this next turn. Taps him down, he'll draw extra cards. So here we go. Anthony has to discard 1. He discards Past and Flames. Okay, so that's one key. So you can see here, Paul is in the driving seat now. He's got exhaustion. I don't think Anthony's going to get another turn. Dictator Crewfix will let him draw an extra card. There's 2 of his win conditions now. 2 Part the Water Veils. He still has an extra turn with Evacuation. Part the Water Veil, I think it's 8 or 9 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just evacuate and pass the turn. With Cryptic Command and Dictate to flash in as well as remand, so he's pretty safe to pass the turn. He has another evacuation there, you can see. He just needs that 1 more land. He's going to be able to draw 3 cards next turn. So Anthony has to discard 2 cards now. Sleight of hand and a remand. He's doing it in the upkeep. I don't know why he does that then. Was he tapped out? There's a 3rd Part the Water Veil and a Time Warp, so he's got more than enough to win this one. Ends a turn, pass a turn. He needs to do 16 damage. See more Howling Mines, more Time Warps. Is it the land that he requires? Awaken with 6. He will get in for put it to 10. So next turn is lethal. Untap, play part the Water Veil, and Anthony will concede, I believe. Don't need to do that, he could have won it on this turn. Yeah, Anthony concedes, so we go to game 2. You can see Anthony can resolve one of his mana dorks here. And he does, and it's a Goblin Electromancer. There's no response on the other side of the table, so this is danger zone for Paul. He has to pass to keep up Remand. As you can see, the Mana Morphos played for only 1 mana. He's just itching with that finger on the remand here. He's got to pick the right... Here's the spell, so he'll remand the Gifts Ungiven, I believe. And that should end the turn. Anthony will fire off a Grape Shot for 6. 6 is not 20, so not a big deal at the moment. And pass the turn. Oh, you chip in for... The Electromancer, why does the Electromancer have haste? I must have missed something there. Exhaustion will buy him a turn. You can see Leyline of Sanctity in hand, so that's going to shut down Grape Shot. So Anthony now is either on Empty the Warrens to get the win, or Echoing Truth to bounce that Leyline. See if he bought an Echoing Truth. Paul is down to 11, so it won't take a lot of Empty the Warrens. But when the Storm player is passing with 2 and 6 cards in hand, he's in deep trouble, I'd imagine. So he's going to end turn Opt. Get an extra card here. So 3 cards in hand. You can see Paul's got nothing going on, so Anthony can go off here if he's got the right pieces. He needs to find Empty the Warrens. Can he find it? So he passes a turn, so yeah, this is a major concern on Anthony's side here. Paul's down to 2 cards, but you can see he's going to be drawing 3 cards next turn. He can take in now with the Time Warp and another Time Walk, so he's going to be able to take plenty of turns here. I think I would have played out Time Walk there, so Remand, yep. Anthony avoids a Death Shot. So Anthony's going to draw 2 cards this time. See what he can find and see if he can go off. I think... Okay, so he's got 3, but him attacking is a bit of a concern here. He plays out a Baral, but that's a concern if that's all he's got. Particularly if 8 cards and he's discarding... He discards Gifts Ungiven. Now, he could have actually played Gifts that turn if he wanted. I suspect he might not get another turn here. As Paul's got a Miracle Temporal Mastery to get an extra turn. There's a pesky pooch here. As a Silence is also going to buy him a turn, although if Anthony has the pieces in hand to go off, he can go off at instant speed in response to the Silence. But Paul just going through the motions now, I think. He's got Exhaustion, he's got so many extra turns here. So he's playing around Remand with that spell. I don't know why he plays Part the Water Veil ahead of Time Warp, because Part the Water Veil is one of his win cons. He's played two. Actually, it's the first one because it got remanded. And it's a bit pointless to silence on his own turn there because he's going to have another turn. And so the second one will just get remanded. Anthony won't untap. But Paul is down to 4, so if the Knuckleheads swing in here, or he's going to fire off a Path to Exile, so Goblin Electromancer can put him to 2. If he had something like a Lightning Bolt, or Lightning Bolt can't get past low line actually. But his life total is dangerously low. Brow off the board, he gives him the 4th, so we can see Paul's hand here, he does not have a counter spell, but Anthony will be tapped out, so the best he can do is 2 lands. Yeah, so Electromancer can't get in because Exhaustion had tapped it down. And I think he can just pass the turn again. 9 cards in hand, so he's going to be discarding again. Was it a flashback a Path to shut down Goblin Electromancer, though when you're at 5 mana it doesn't matter so much anymore. Well, there's Unsubstantiate. I believe that can actually target Leyline. But he chooses not to. So much mana now available. I don't think that's necessary. Fire off a Path here because I don't see Anthony getting another turn. It does protect against Remand because it means that he'd need to spend the 2 mana instead of the 1 he's got up to Remand. Geiger Drouse is another turn bought, basically. I don't think there's any point in doing that. He'll play a Temporal Mastery, get another turn, swing in for 2. Might as well drop that Snappy, I guess. No. Cryptic. There's a Part the Water Veil, so that's the key part. Gonna chip in for 8 here, get another turn.
What device?
There's a search for a Skunter. So this is all trivial now. I get another turn and a concession. So we're going to Legacy now, game 1.
Alexa, turn off living room.
Phyrexian Dreadnought, 12/12. So we've seen him play this quite a few times. We'll see what he's up against here.
I didn't find living room Rexia and Dreadmill 1212.
Alexa, turn off living room. So he's up against Eldrazi, Legacy Eldrazi. We'll see what sort of Legacy Eldrazi. Colourless, I'd assume. This is Phyrexian Dreadnought. So he's going to... okay, this is a smart play. So I just bring up the Dreadnought. Just give me 1 second. The Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 12/12 Trampler, but when it comes into play, sacrifice any number of creatures total power of 12 or bury the Dreadnought. So what he's done here is that's actually a trigger that goes on the stack, and he's used Stifle to stifle the trigger. Quite a smart play. So he gets a 12/12 on turn 1. And we'll see how the Eldrazi player can beat a 12/12. With Trample, I should add. I don't think so. So he's actually got lethal next turn. I don't know. I'm trying to think what Anthony can possibly find here. We're looking at a very fast game 1. Yeah, and there's a concession, so we're going to game 2 now. No, well, he's got the Stifle, but he doesn't have a Dreadnought. Okay, Torpor Orb in hand as well. That's another key card here. In future weeks, what I'm doing is we're going to be able to zoom these cards up on the full screen for you to see. So creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. So Torpor Orb is another way of shutting off that trigger from the Dreadnought. Plays out Torpor Orb. You can see Torpor Orb's going to get Anthony's got a Chalice on 1, so that's going to shut down Stifle. But Torpor Orb is going to enable him to get around that. As you can see, 2, 4, 6 cards in hand, 5 of them are useless. 2 Thoughtseize and an Inquisition. But Anthony with no mana here. I don't know what he chose to keep. And there's another Stifle. So many useless cards in Paul's hand. But Anthony just... and another Stifle. So 3 Stifles. Anthony's Chalice on 1 doing the work. As down will come a Eldrazi Mimic. A Chalice Crucible of Worlds will enable him to play lands out of the grave. Chips in for 2, so this is a race. If Paul finds the Dreadnought, then Anthony's dead. Anthony's got to kill him before he can find the Dreadnought. 5 damage on the board on the other side. I don't know why Anthony didn't play the Matter Reshaper before combat to get the extra point of damage. Here's a second Mimic. Don't know why he didn't play it through the Ancient Tomb, because I don't think his life total 2 points really matters here. Snappy will come down in response. Block the Reshaper. I would have blocked the Mimic, I think, because the Reshaper is going to get a trigger now. Might net him an extra card, a Cavern, so it's an extra land. He will play that out. Paul's down to 8. Matter Reshaper, and again, could have been before combat. Still can't find the Dreadnought. Just Wastelands to keep him off Thought Not Seer, but he's on there anyway, and we're going to game 3. Smasher will trigger the Mimics. And game 3 of Legacy now. Very fast Legacy matchup. He's the Echoing Truth has come in, I'm guessing for Crucible of Worlds. You can see that card that he has there called Haunted Horror. I'll just bring that one up. No results. Hunted Horror? Maybe? Yeah, Hunted Horror, okay. So the Hunted Horror is 2 double black. It's a 7/7. When it comes into play, put 2 3/3 tokens of protection from black under your opponent's control. There's an Endless one for 2/2 and a Thought Not Seer. So this is a good start for Anthony here. What's he going to take? In response, Paul stifles the trigger. So what can Paul... Okay, Torpor Orb's one part of the combo that he needs. Because he can't stifle the trigger now, but he's got Torpor Orb, so that's going to stop the trigger from happening. But he's going to be taking 6, so he needs to find a threat pretty soon. Chalice is going to come down for 1. Six damage coming across from Anthony. Paul down to 9. A second Torpor Orb is not what you want to find. Does he play a Hunted Horror? I think he's going to. Yep, and then he can actually Echoing Truths the... Okay, so I see what he's trying to do here. So Torpor Orb shuts down the trigger that gives the 3/3s. So that's a pretty nice play. So it's all built around removing these triggers that help out the opponent, but there's no viable threats there on the other side. Wasteland here, he can play the second one, so now he's got 2 7/7s. And with a Echoing Truth, this can be a blowout. Puts Anthony down to 7. Plays a Mishra's Factory. Can he find... okay, he's got a Smasher. Is that enough to swing in here? against a 7/7. Okay, so that's going to make it so that Hunted Horror cannot block. So the Knuckleheads are going to come in. He has to use the Echoing Truth here to bounce that Reality Smasher. Oh no, 7/7. He can block one, bounce the other one. And actually, he's actually got lethal here. So this is going to cost Anthony to match. He will bounce the Reality Smasher with the Echoing Truth so it can't be played back. He will drop to 5 in response, draw a card, and now he's got lethal on the crackback. So Paul has completed the clean sweep, 3-0 against Anthony. And there is a concession.